Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of In Love with Love. I am Anja.
And I'm Nicole.
And we are your hostess with the mostest. And today we are talking to the beautiful, the talented, and the in-depth therapist, Taylor Banks.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hello, Miss Taylor. So can you just let us know a little bit of your background? Where are you from? All of your stats.
Oh, sure. So I am born and raised from New York, and I stayed there for about 32 years before then moving to Atlanta. So now I'm a Georgia peach, although nobody ever thinks I'm from New York. Everyone's always like, "You're from New York?" I'm like, "I am. I guess I'm on the softer side of New York than what people are accustomed to." But I definitely am born and raised in New York and absolutely still love everything New York. I am a therapist. I went to Boston College and Fordham to pursue counseling in particular in social work. So that was a huge part of my college journey as a whole. Listen, we don't have to come back and talk about college one day, but it definitely was what sparked and really just anchored me in faith. And so I think for most people, right, like sometimes those college years can be real formative developmental years. And so when I think about my own story, definitely was, right when I was doing social work, I was also getting a master's in seminary. And I like to say that the Lord trapped me into ministry with that. I knew I would be in ministry at some point, but I always thought it was later in life and did not think that it would be, that I would make that decision my senior year of college and would have my first trial sermon literally right after graduating and all those things. But the journey has been great. And so I had the privilege of being able to do counseling over the last now 10 years, 11 years. I've done juvenile justice. I've done middle school. Middle school is the ghetto, y'all.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Middle school. And thank God I don't do middle school anymore. And so I am now at Clark Atlanta, but then also privately, I work with leaders, helping them to cultivate mental and emotional life. And so I believe that when we are well, just as people, that we are able to create well communities and well families and well churches, right? Like that wellness has to start within us. And so I believe that we all need to really just take care of our mental and emotional health so that that can happen. And then lastly, I am the founder and visionary of Woman in Pursuit, which is not just a movement, it's a lifestyle of women who have decided that we're going to pursue God in every area of our life, that he cares more about not just being a part of prayer and purpose, but he wants to be a part of our relationships. All right, that's what we're here to talk about, right? He wants to be a part of our finances. He wants to be a part of every single area. There's no area that he does not want to be a part of. And when we make him a part of it, we are so much more successful and so much more fulfilled in our lives. And so I love doing community with them. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And I'm excited to be here to have some girl talk.
Welcome. Yay.
Awesome. I have a question. You just said something that made me go beep, ears going. What is your journey? What has your journey to wellness look like? Like, what did it look like at a starting point? And what is the journey looking like as you are now where you are?
Yeah, so I would say that my journey actually started as a child because my mother, she was a stay-at-home mom most of my life. But I remember the first few years of my life, she was a social worker. And then at some point in my life, she got a master's in counseling. And so having talks about like wellness and in particular, especially like things that were happening in our family. Like I remember in like 5th grade, we did a genogram and we were looking at like, what are the patterns that are coming up in our families that you should be aware of? And that was really a huge seed in me thinking about how I wanted to live my life intentionally and how I would make decisions about different things. And I also had my bishop's wife, who was our pastor. She was a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so I didn't grow up. I grew up, when I tell you I'm a pew baby, I mean, I came out and I was in church. So I've been in church literally since the day I pretty much was born, right? But I did not have the narrative or the experience of like, Christians don't do therapy, because it was so normalized within at least my local community. It wasn't until I got older that I realized, oh, y'all don't want to talk to people. Wait, what's going on? Because my pastor offered free counseling to members, because she just wanted to make sure that if you needed something, like if you need to talk through something, that you wouldn't be limited to, resources being low or not having finances, all those things. And so if she needed to provide counseling, she would, so having that as a foundation, I believe, really helped me as I was going along. It didn't necessarily make it easier, but at least made it something a part of my thought process so that I would consider it. Once I got into the profession, and once I got really into like full-time ministry and things like that, one of the challenges that I have had is really making sure that I am not just constantly showing up as one that is serving or pouring, but making sure that I'm taking time to sit and to be poured into, whether that's just with the Father, whether that's in friendship, whether that's in therapy, myself, but whether it's with my mentor or coaching, like just creating spaces where I'm actually doing what I teach others to do, which is so easy not to do.
Yeah.
And I've always been the counselor. Like even when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I remember having conversations like with older teens, or even like when I got older into like some of my teen years, even a young adulthood, with a full-grown adults, right? Like that just trusted. Obviously, God gave me a gift of wisdom that didn't require, the professional, but that professional did help. And so I've always been that person. And so because of that, it is something that you can just kind of live and do at all times. Like you're always ready to listen. Like you're not necessarily ready to talk. You're just like, I listen all day. So go ahead and talk. And then, strangers, they'll just talk to you. Like, why? I don't really want to hear your life story today. But yeah, tell me all about it, But I say that to say that I've constantly I know that I have to be very intentional about not always just showing up to do. I'm a mentor. I do a lot. And so that is something that at this point in my life that I try to be mindful of, that I'm disconnecting, that I'm sitting and being present so that I'm well. Because ain't no sense in me teaching others to be well and not be well myself. Does that mean that every moment I'm going to be at my best? Maybe not. But at least if I'm considering it and being mindful of myself, then I can prevent burnout. I can prevent that frustration and things that can come when you're constantly just doing and not being.
It's a very powerful point that you're sharing. I was just having a conversation with a young lady a couple of days ago, the very same thing, and her really wanting to show up for herself, her really wanting, like you said, to be in relationships where she's not just pouring, but that she's receiving. And so I think the very acknowledgement that she desired that was a really great place to start. And then trying to putting parameters in place and boundaries, healthy boundaries, so that she can show up for herself in that way. It's very powerful.
Yes. My sister said, I have a sister ministry friend who said this, and I told her, I'm gonna give you credit in the beginning, but at some point I may forget. But today I can remember my sister Tawanda. She's actually in California now, and she said this. She said, God has called us to be human beings, not human doings. Right. And it's like a lot of us do fall into that human doing thing, whether you're a parent, whether you're a friend, employee, employer, like ministry, like there's so many different things that keep us in go mode and doing mode, performance mode. But we were never called to be that. We were called to be a being. So
that's good. Did you have a question, Andra? Bless you.
I'm gonna have to edit that out.
You're fine.
Oh God. Lord have mercy. Hold on 1 second. I believe that was for an opportunity of brevity around here and levity. My question. Excuse me. Thank you, Lord. All right. My question. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I wanted to know about girlfriend or sister friend, as you just brought it up, sister friend relationships and how vital those are in your life.
Oh man, like I am a girl's girl. So I am honored, I'm blessed. I don't even know what the word is. Grateful to say that I've never had the story of like, it's hard for me to be friends with women. And I know that that is definitely a very prevalent experience that a lot of women say. And that's why I say that, because I know that it could be different. But for me, like friendship has always been really important, from being a little girl in Girl Scouts all the way up to now. And even more so, like I am in community with women who do what I do also on a very great scale. And there's no competition, there's no jealousy, there's no envy, which is like really unheard of. I don't know if we've just done the work on ourselves. I don't know why we're able to do this, but we can't live in isolation, right? And so being able to have people that I can go to, every person may not be the person for all things, but having people that you can go to. You need friends for just laughing. Like we don't got to be deep. We just like the same food. And so we just happen to eat food and laugh and maybe talk a little bit, you know what I'm saying, about what we had just saw, whatever. Right. And that's that. And then, but we also need people that like at our lowest, we can go to them and they can pray, or they can just listen, or they can pour. Like it has completely transformed my life. And every season that I can see, there's always been sisterhood present. Always been sisterhood present. And I believe that that is like really even saved me from some moments that could have been very dark and low and just depressing, because iron sharpens iron, right? And like when you don't have it and somebody else does, and you're in their presence, like I believe that as a sister's keeper, that we lend our measure of faith when one doesn't have it. We lend our measure of strength when somebody ain't got it. When somebody, is kind of having a moment, girl, you need to come off the edge, like you about to do. Like we need somebody else to have that when we don't, and we need to make space for people to be honest with us and to, correct us with love, to push us when we're not doing what we had said we was gonna do. And I'm really like, I'm that person though. I'm like, remember you had said you were gonna do that? you know what I mean? Like what had happened, But we need that, because it's easy to forget what you said that you were gonna do, or to believe the discouraging thoughts that make you kind of pull away. And so when you have somebody just reminding you out of nowhere, it's like, okay, yeah, like I can do this, like I gotta do that, So for me, friendship is and I make my best friend, she always says, if you're going to be friends with Taylor, you just have to know that she's going to make more friends. Like if you are somebody, because you know how some people are like, you're my friend. And
right.
Friends. I'm constantly making, it's not on purpose. Like, and all of my closest friends, none of them even live in Georgia. Like my best friends, I have Rhode Island. I got one in California. I got one in Texas, St. Louis, Detroit. Like none of us are in the same space. Right. But because that is who I am, if you're somebody that's territorial, it's never going to work, because I'm probably going to meet somebody today. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, well, how did you meet them? Girl, on Instagram. Because I told you, I'm in people's stories on Instagram. Like, girl, yeah, that's cute. Like, wait a minute. Like, yeah. And at some point you feel like you're friends with them. So
I love that about you. And I love that I can definitely tell, just me having experienced, the glory that is Taylor Banks. Like you really relate to women and pour into women and just have a call essentially to women. I want to pivot a little bit and just kind of ask you, what has your journey been like, and I'm going to say why I'm asking this, but what has your journey been like as far as the fathering experience? Like, I know we interviewed someone a couple of weeks ago, and she helped us kind of navigate her thought process as it relate to maybe having a lack of fathering, and her journey and struggle even in the church, right? Those people, because of the desire, I think sometimes, for validation, and how people have mishandled her. And so I kind of just curious, how would you kind of narrate your story from the fathering perspective, if that makes sense?
So I was raised in a 2-parent home. What was different, I think, about my fathering experience is that my father was not and still isn't saved. So while I was fathered, it he did what he could based off of his understanding of fatherhood, which his father wasn't present. And so what he understood fathering really was about protection and provision. And so I have a very strong example of what it means to have a father that provides. Like, every experience that I've had, that I've been blessed to have, like, I went to Mexico in 8th grade with my Spanish class, only because I had a father that was, that would think like it's good enough for you to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because he could have been like, no, like we could do whatever,
Right.
but it's like, no, like he provided. And so a lot of what I understood fatherhood from what I experienced from him was about provision. I did have to, the challenging part that I've had to journey with my natural father is that he is an attorney, a corporate attorney. So it's given boring, they're not the he could be excited, but like, anybody that reads contracts, he loves sports and all those things. And he's actually really funny if you actually talk to him. But I think some of his communication style, though, as a child was hard for me. Like, I would I'm sure if I would be like, hey, you remember this time in my life? He'd be like, yeah, like, but he probably wouldn't understand, like, why was that so hard for you?
Right.
But when I would give him my papers, because he also, when he was in law school, he was also like an English writing professor or something. And so the way he would tear my papers up in middle school and high school.
No mercy.
Jesus. And he would send it back like an attorney. It's red. Everything's red, crossed out. You should say this. What are you saying there? But then would be like, it's good. Like, you can't tell me it's good after I see all this red. Like, can I even write? Like,
attorney, though, right?
Girl, I would be I would be torn up. Like, I would not want to send him my papers. I'm like, I just can't take it. Like, it's too much. Like, it just felt like too much criticism. Like, nothing, I can't do anything.
Did that set you up for like any kind of perfectionism?
I maybe a little bit. Now, there's also a part of me that just likes things to be right. Like, my mom was like the host of hosts. So like, I got to see her always planning like our family events. And so there's things that I think other than that definitely contributes to like a level of excellence that I believe in. But I'm sure like, just even it did make me deal with some rejection things. Even though he wasn't rejecting me, it felt like it.
Yeah.
Like, why is the paper whatever? And so I would try to like steer away from giving them to him. I would try to give them to my mom, and she'd be like, you need to just send this to your father. Like, why are you sending this to me? And I'm like, I just can't today. I just don't want to. And so I say that to say that when it came to then what I experienced fathering from, a heavenly father, I had to really allow for him to father me in some of the ways that maybe my father couldn't, and learn to like accept and know that like God's love for me is not based off what I do or my performance, but that like his love for me is simply because I am a daughter. And that is one of the most powerful things I believe we see, even when Jesus is affirmed by the Father on the day of his baptism. He says, this is my beloved in whom I am well pleased. And he had not done a working, he had not done a miracle, a sign, or a wonder. Right. He affirmed him as a son simply because that is who he was to him as a father. And so that dynamic between Heavenly Father for me and natural father really has taken me on a journey in me making sure that I have a balance, right? Because it kind of started off very heavy with one side, but I needed to experience the other. I need to know that like fathering is more than just provision and protection. But that was the way, by the time I got to college, I realized that was the way he knew how to make sure we were loved. And he couldn't always say it, but like that was his way of making sure we always knew that we were loved. Maybe couldn't, and the reality is we sometimes forget that our parents are human beings,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like they're navigating their own stuff too. And like his job was very demanding.
Right.
Being a Black man in corporate America at a top firm in New York City
that's a lot of stress. Oh my God.
it's like violent. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
like violent, like mentally, emotionally violent, being in that environment. And so it meant, he was going to provide the vacation, but he might be on the vacation with documents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, you don't understand that as a kid, but then when you get older, you look back, you're like, well, thank God, you know, like,
that goes hand in hand with I'm thinking the next part of your, sharing is we're talking about romantic relationships as well. Like when we start, the first man we're meeting is the father. I can think about my own father, and so many of our Black men of color, kind of show up in a way that they are more comfortable with their intellect than they are their emotion, so how have you walked through trying to, ensure that you have this healthy, I guess, understanding of men and how to navigate and interact with men? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that, I think there's a number of things that kind of happen. So I would say that, how can I put this kindly? So I would say if I were to look back on some of the first couple of dating experiences I had, I'll say like this, one of the things that I have been told is some of the people you dated, like you were more advanced than them, in the sense of maybe emotionally I was already further ahead, maybe education or just certain things, even spiritually, I was already farther ahead, which is not to put them down in the sense of like, that means they weren't good because of where they were. But when you're coming together with somebody and not being really equally partnered, it's going to be hard for you to move forward, because in the dynamic, when we're thinking about the biblical marriage, right? Like we're submitting one to another, but there's also a level of submission that I need to be able to take with my covering. But if they don't have yet the ability or the capacity to lead, then we might be in a little bit of trouble, right? Or it may mean that I may be even limiting or even silencing myself in certain ways that would not have been healthy or fruitful for both of us. Like it could have done harm to me, would have done harm to you. And so I've really have had to be mindful of understanding my own worth, right? And not settling for just any type of dating experience, but making sure that I am really being intentional and even selective, which, sometimes as you get older, like people sometimes critique people's standards or just do things of like, well, should you just do this or whatever? And it's like, no, like we need to have these parameters in place because they help us to make good, sober decisions about who we are partnering with.
Right.
And so I've definitely in my dating journey have had to be like, this is who you are. Like, this is who you are.
Unapologetically.
Because of who you are, you cannot be with anyone. Like what I'm called to do, especially like in ministry, especially in the gifts of the Spirit, I'm gonna take the extreme. If you're like, well, I don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit. Well, how in the world are you going to cover me in what I'm doing? Because if you don't believe it, like I can't come under that when part of my mission is to operate fully in miracles and healing and all these in the prophetic, right? And so I've had to really be okay with, this is just who you are, and everyone is not capable of maybe partnering with you, but that is not an indication of any less value in them. It's just you having to honor your own value.
Yes. Andra got questions. I already see it on her face.
It was really honestly just a simple question with that aspect. And I said, because God has such a sense of humor, he's so funny. He'd be like, you think you got this? Let me look. And so I have a question with that. What if I don't know if you've had this experience or not, but what if, and I don't think you're talking about it in a way that it may look a certain way, just certain kind of things, but what if God was so clear, like, this is what, this is who, now work with it. And it doesn't look that way. It doesn't look like they're able to, but
Sure.
yet you're
Doesn't
coming
look
up.
like they're able to cover you, perhaps.
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
sure, sure.
But the role of I don't even know. Do you even acknowledge the role of a helpmeet or anything?
Yeah, so for me, it's not about, you don't have to look like there's not a look or I'm trying to think of the words. For me, right? If God says to me that this is the person, well, let me say this. I am wired to see beyond what you present. So, and this has sometimes been like a girl, you seeing too much and they not there yet.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Look,
Right? Because it's like,
listen.
let me tell you, I dated someone and I remember in the beginning, I was like, oh, you have an apostolic gift and you're going to pastor and you're going to do this. And he was like, what? And guess what? Well, we're not together, but
He's doing that.
right. And so the thing though, what I'm saying that to say that me and just like many of us, we can see a lot of potential in the people that we are encountering, that we may consider to be a help me, right? To be a spouse. And so my issue is not what you look like, right? Because if God tells me, then I am submitted to God, like 10 toes down, like, God, you say that, fine, that's what it is. If I'm not seeing though fruit, what I will do though is we're gonna pray that fruit up from under the ground. Like we need this seed to grow. And I believe though that, like, I believe in certain moments like that God is showing us things to help us to even take the posture of a wife, of what it looks like to intercede, right? Because that is a huge part of being a partner, is being able to intercede for who you are connected to. And so though you may not fully look like, right, there does need to be something, a little something that gives us hope of this can happen, because I don't believe the Father would set us up for something that was going to cause for us to fail. So
Right.
even if something doesn't quite make sense, then it requires a different level of patience of like, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you, Lord, right now, maybe, or I don't really see how. And that's never happened to me where I'm like, this don't make no sense. But if you find yourself in that, right, like you're like, okay, Lord, well, I'm gonna leave that to you and you can make it make sense.
Exactly.
In time, I'm not gonna force stuff. I'm not gonna do whatever. I'm not going to, even just because God says something doesn't mean that I have to like intentionally yoke up with you right away. Because if God says something, he can work on it until it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you attach prematurely, there are consequences for premature attachments.
Right.
You know what I mean?
This is a good conversation. It's leading me into, I think, what so many of us women want to hear. Like, because first of all, some people believe in the one soulmate. What's your take on it? Lead us through that conversation. And have you had that experience where, you know, God, the heavens opened, you heard him, you saw the vision, you saw yourself walking down the aisle. What was your experience?
Yeah. So I believe that, okay, let me say this because I got to say in multiple ways. So I believe that God can tell you, whether man or woman, because people love to say, if you're a woman, why would he tell you? But man or woman, he can tell you who your spouse is. How you respond to what he says, though, can determine how the process actually unfolds and if it will actually happen. Because though he may tell you that that this can be something that he wants, if the other person does not come into agreement with said things, if the Lord shows and maybe they're like, no, then that word may not come to pass. And I'm telling you, because this is what I live.
Conditional. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and yeah, you know this, Nicole, like what we've been taught is like prophecy is conditional, right? And it's progressive. And so our decision making, it does impact the manifestation of a word, right? And so I do believe that God can tell you, but I also believe that as somebody that heard the Lord and the person decided to do something different, it didn't work out, that does not mean that my story is over.
Right.
Right. Because again, I wouldn't say that I believe that there's only one in the entire world. That I believe can be very dangerous, because if you think there's only one in the world, then when the one that you thought, that we don't even know if we don't know, well, sometimes we don't know if you really heard it. I'm just gonna say it.
Exactly.
Yeah, y'all, sometimes, because the reality is how we hear is determined by our desires, but also our unhealed places.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why we have to heal is because healing clarifies our vision, but healing also clarifies our hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have dealt with pain, it begins to distort and fracture our senses, which can then make it that you will hear from that place, right? And so we have to heal so that we're doing our part to the best of our ability to make sure that there is nothing that is limiting our ability to see and to hear and to think and to decide and all of those good things, right? And so that is important in really making sure. And then we also have our soul. We have desires.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what? Every time you meet somebody, you're going to think sometimes this could be it. Simply tell us your desire.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I was just thinking, because we spoke to another couple, and it was like she had made some requests and he had made some requests to the Lord, and it just seemed so easy and so simple and so light.
Right. Look at your face.
Huh?
Look at Taylor's face. Go ahead.
So easy, so simple, so light. And I do, I wonder often, because a lot of times, especially, we're unmarried. It sounds like you're still unmarried, correct, Taylor?
Yes.
Okay, so we're unmarried. We're women of God. We like, Lord, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
I won't think too deeply about this no more. Like, let it just be. And what some people will call a fairy tale, it's really not. It's when we just kind of walk in the grace, living life, and then put out, how you like me now? Like, that person shows up in whichever form, and nobody's saying that there's still not work to be done.
Sure, yeah.
But I noticed too, though, and I believe that this is something, because we are all in the same age bracket, the extreme levels of options, or the idea of options that people think they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
plays a part in it as well. Whereas generations before us, they didn't have all of these, wasn't like you Tinder and just like, what the right person still might be, you can't hold me down because it's always a better choice. And how that limits us. How do you help women with that? Or not even just women. How do you help people through that, and the plethora of options and choices that we have?
Yeah. I definitely think that it can be you have to really seek God, I believe, about like what works for you. Cause like some people, they're able to, like, I have a friend who recently got married, but I remember her always talking about like dating experience. And she was a dater. And I'd be like, baby, that's a lot of dating. Like, that just seems stressful. Like having to restart, you know what I mean? And like, we're all made differently and all have different capacities. But I think that when we think about like the narrative of what is pushed, a lot of it is like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Cool. You probably shouldn't until it's really safe. But does that mean that you should necessarily date every single option that
keep them in rotation, baby? She'd be like, keep them in rotation, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not a rotation girly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm definitely commitment heavy.
Yeah.
And so the rotation part is probably not going to be my strong suit, and that's not going to be the way I need to go. But there are some who have the ability, because emotionally they can handle going into these different interactions and truly setting boundaries of just gathering that data and then making the decision from there, right? And so I'm saying to say, you have to know yourself and what you're capable of. Some people, they can't handle too many at one time. Some people can, and I'm not saying too many. When I say they can handle a lot at one time, I'm not saying they like 12 relationships at once, right? But like, they can date, they can be out there and just date, and they can go in and out. They don't feel super discouraged by the fact that something just wasn't a good fit. You know, like you need to be emotionally ready when you're dating, because every person is not going to be the person. But just because they're not doesn't mean that it was purposeless, or like, you know, oh man, you go when you fall into the spiral of, you know, Eeyore, nothing ever works for me.
But you know what? I think even with that, like living in California and just, you know, having such a mixture of friends, I definitely noticed that my friends who were non-Black, like they had fun with it.
Oh yeah.
They had fun.
It's not too serious. The church, we be making things a little too deep.
But that was what I was saying at the beginning. Like,
Yeah,
can we all?
Well, remember when we interviewed our friend a couple of weeks, Kaz and Jazz, and how she was, listen, I have got to enjoy life because she was living so extreme in the faith, right? In the religious, I don't know what it was, but she was just like, I have to live and enjoy myself. And not that she was going to just go buck wild, but she began to date and she just really had fun. She set her boundaries, and for her that worked.
Mm-hmm. And I think it can work. It just really depends on, you know, like what you have access to and like where, you know, because if you're maybe more limited in your environment, you know, maybe there's just not as many options for what maybe you prefer or whatever, right? Because we know there are a lot of things that kind of go into that. Then you might have to get creative, you know, like that's why online dating is there. If you can handle online dating in the whirlwind that sometimes that can be, then like go for it, right? Because it can present you with more options if you have no options.
Well, let me ask you, Taylor. Let's do the girl talk. So what does Taylor Banks like? Like, are you like you like them up north boys? You like where you at?
So I mean, that's a great question, because I'm like, I've dated someone from the South. My more serious relationship with someone from the South. I have dated someone in the North. I will say this, and this is superficial. This is not this is not necessarily a non-negotiable, but I will tell you that something that I'm not really a fan of is an accent.
Southern accent. Is that what we're saying?
Just any accent. I don't care where it's from. If it's overly strong, like, you know, those accents where it's like, wow.
Caribbean, African, like all the accents.
Especially as you are from New York, okay? Some of the strongest accents ever. How did you
know what it is that because I'm from there, sometimes I don't actually hear, I can hear it now more that I don't live there, that I can pick up like, oh yeah, this person does have an accent. And it's not that I don't think the Northern would bother me as much, but like, you know, like how people like just swoon over the UK, like, oh, the British accent. I'm like, okay, I guess. Like, I get mad like when I find out a celebrity that I'm like, oh, he fine. Then you find he got accent. I'm like, why can't you be from? Anyway, it's very superficial because, however, if the Lord wants to send me a British man, guess what? I'm gonna marry. I'm gonna receive, and I'm gonna get over it. But it's just not. I don't know what I just never swooned over it. But the type of I know that I definitely am like a man's man in the sense of not like toxic masculinity, but like I'm definitely into sports. And so for me, like a man that is able to connect with that, you don't have to be the best, like where I was a football player, but like, I think what it really speaks to is like this idea of being able to have like common interests and be able to make memories around it for me. Definitely a man of faith in the sense of you don't have to do what I do, but just do what you've been called to do and do that well. And I say that because for anybody that is a woman in public ministry, when you, I'm like, this could be a whole nother podcast, but this is something me and my friends have talked about because a couple of us all do have like pretty solid platforms, public platforms. And so how we're perceived by men is often based off of when they see us like in moments where we have to present in a certain way. And the reality is that I've had a lot of people tell me, this is crazy. Someone was telling me once, like, oh, you know, I know somebody that has a crush on you. well, you know they have a crush on me, but why are they not telling me that they have a crush on me? Like, what is that? Or why, like my brother was saying
intimidation. We were just having this conversation.
Yes. And I'm like, I feel like I am so not intimidating. And my brother's like, well, people who know you know that, but the way you present on social media where you're traveling doing ministry by yourself, hopping on and off planes, you are, and then you also like have a business, and like you present, the way that you present can be intimidating, even though we know that that is not who you are. Like that you're very approachable, very relatable, but your power to some people can be too much, and they're not necessarily, and they don't. Here's the thing, there are men who don't want to be with another woman who is as out in the front, especially in ministry. Mm-hmm. And so I remember the day I found that out, I was like, what? I literally saw on a post, it was like, I would prefer for her not to. And I'm like, so you're telling me you're in church, you preach, you prophesy, you lay hands, you raise the dead, but you would rather your wife not do that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Well, clearly.
Well, I've heard a lot of men of God, ministers, pastors, if you will, lately on social media, and I'm not judging it, but I have heard it because it's new to me. Them say, I didn't marry them for you, the people, right? I just want her to be my wife. Like, I just want to be, she doesn't have to do anything in the church. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. So,
and my thing is understandable too, because it's very cultural. If you think about it, when I say cultural, I mean like American culture. Women only have really been in the workforce for the past 60 something years. You know what I'm saying?
It's a little high, but yeah, it might be.
And that's something, because they weren't even allowed to like buy houses or anything until 1972. That's what, 50 years ago, so it's still very cultural in our
but when the context that they're saying it, they're not saying, well, I don't know how Taylor's saying it, but the comment I'm making is more so, she's just, I feel like the nuance behind it is she's just my breath of fresh air. Right. She doesn't need to do that. She's not.
You see a lot of men who are marrying. You see, like, I don't want to say it's a trend, but you see a lot of men who are marrying women who don't do anything kind of already attached to potentially like ministry in certain traditional ways, which doesn't mean that where they may not grow into it, right? Because I've also seen men be like, I didn't know this, like, I didn't know she was going to become this when we, I didn't realize that throughout her growing process that I would have to be reintroduced to someone that was doing what I thought maybe I was only going to do, right? Like, it can be on both sides. And here's my thing, like, hey, I don't need to do anything. Like, even though I do things, I would be totally fine with marrying a pastor and being like, I'm just going to be your wife, because there's somebody in this church that could do I don't need to do the women's ministry.
Exactly. Get somebody else to do it.
I don't have to. You know what I mean? Like, it really should be like that, because it really should be about calling. It should really be about what is God assigning me to, versus just because of a position, I'm doing this. Yeah. Because if I'm doing it just because of what I understand about position, then I'm doing it out of obligation. And there's going to be a wrestling and even a resentment that can form because of that. Because obligation eventually gets old.
Yeah.
It's not
enough. That's so true. So very true. So I have a question. Okay. What does Taylor Banks do for fun?
Ooh, girl. Okay. I'll tell you what I want to start doing for fun. I really want to take up either tennis or golf this year. And it's probably going to be golf I'm going to start with, because there's a place nearby. But listen, sometimes yesterday, you know what I did for fun? I sat on that couch. Okay. Because sometimes it's just so busy. You're like, what? But I love hiking. I like active things. So like, I don't mind going to like some of those kid places that's supposed to be for kids, but like, let's jump in the pit too. Let's jump on trampoline. Maybe not the pit, because people be throwing up in those, but the trampoline, you know, the cleansier areas. I love a good paint night. I love a good, let's make a candle. I really was just telling a friend this earlier today. We were talking about how we want to take a pasta making class because I love cooking. I love to cook. I love to host people. I love to feed people. So sometimes I'm just like, let me come up with something to just do just because. I love sports. So I don't mind going to a basketball game. I haven't played basketball in a long time, but I actually played for like 10, 12 years. I played basketball. So I do love sports still. What else do I love? I love to shop. Now, is the budget always there for a shop? Maybe not. But I welcome, if my husband is watching this, I welcome your budget.
Come on now. Tisha, become one.
So we can make that a real all the time hobby. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you come, you know what I mean? There's more room for me to be spending on this. So yeah, really anything. Like I love I'm spontaneous too. Like if you call me like, hey, let's go do this. Sure, as long as I have anything to do, I'm down for trying anything new for the most part. Now, I don't want to bungee jump off a cliff, but I do want to go skydiving. Like I, at some point, do want to go skydiving. I feel like I would freak out going up. I would freak out looking down. But I feel like by the time you take that jump, though, you're like, this was worth it. You just got to get there.
Woo, woo. Yeah.
You just got to take that leap.
You're so funny. Just take the leap of faith.
Take the leap first.
Listen. Okay. All right. What's your favorite dish to make?
My favorite dish. I'm a sauce girl, so like I love making sauce. Like I will come up with anything that may require a sauce, like whether it's pasta, whether it's like a gravy, but like non-traditional type, like not like Southern gravy like that. That's good, but like I love making different sauces that you can use. I love a good one-pan meal where you can put the rice and the chicken in one pan.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's less dishes because even though I love to cook, I hate dishes.
Okay, if you're listening, you can do the dishes. She will cook, sir.
I can load a mean dishwasher. I can load a dishwasher like nobody's business.
That's the real power.
Baby, I can put things in there. You think there's no space. Oh no, there's space in here. I can do that. But using my hands to wash dishes. Now, if I have to, I will. But anybody that knows me, like if there's a family event, I will help straighten up. But the last thing I'm probably gonna do, unless it's a dishwasher, is go scrub some dishes with my hands.
I feel like that's trauma of my childhood with that. I was like, my mama always like the big pans, scrubbing it. I'm like, oh,
not even my trauma, girl, because I have a stay-at-home mom. So, I ain't gonna lie, I did have it kind of easy now. I wasn't washing dishes. That was literally never I didn't start washing. This is so embarrassing. And I know y'all, we listen and we don't judge. I'm trying to think, when did I start washing dishes? I feel like I didn't start washing dishes until like college.
Oh, wow.
That sounds about right.
Because we had dishwashers. And you know why? Yeah. Because we had 2 dishwashers and they broke.
I didn't grow up with a dishwasher, so.
I said, the dishwasher broke? What are we going to do? You're going to have to watch. That was traumatizing. They were like, we didn't raise you right. You didn't raise you right. And I'm like, y'all did a great job. I want to thank you for what you have done. I cannot believe that now at this big age, I'm now just starting to wash dishes. So when I moved to Atlanta, because when I left New York, I was in an apartment in New York City with no dishwasher. So I had been washing dishes. When I tell you, I was like, let me tell you something. Bye, New York. It's got to be a dishwasher. Got to be a dishwasher in here. And so, yeah, I will wait until the dishwasher is full before I will wash a dish and just start it like.
I get it. I totally understand that. But you know what? The most important thing is that you know yourself. So that you don't have to come up with any kind of things when Mr. Man comes.
I'm a cook. You're gonna be fed well.
Ooh,
he's gonna be fed well. He just got to do the dishes.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I know you shared a little bit a minute ago.
Yes.
And, you certainly navigate the story as you feel best. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important for us to kind of unpack a little bit when you, for whatever reason, we believe this is the one God is speaking. We're walking in faith, and the story doesn't turn out the way we would have hoped or what we believed it was going to be. Help others, because I know there are a lot of people that have been on this journey. Perhaps give some tools and some tips for how do we navigate getting back to the place of wholeness, because that's a breaking place. I'll be honest, I've been there, and I'll share my story. When I just briefly experienced that disappointment, that devastation, if you will, it was a heartbreak. It literally felt like, how you get punched in the stomach and you're like that gasp of air or a breath, and you're just like, how do I breathe again? That was my experience. How do I catch my breath? Because I feel like I've gotten the wind knocked out of me. That's what they say. So for you, maybe share your experience. What was it like, and how do we navigate that?
Yeah, I would say that because it was like felt like a 3-4 year journey. That the biggest, not, yes, it was disappointing. We know that. For me, where the war came in was trusting myself and trusting that I could hear God.
Yes, absolutely.
Like and there's still some moments where I'm like, okay, all right, Lord, and trusting people. Because when you've received prophetic words about something, like it wasn't just God talking to you, and this wasn't like people giving you, because like a friend give you a prophetic word, not saying that doesn't mean anything. However, our friends are connected to us. And so me and my friends, we don't, even though we are all, most of us are prophets, we don't actually give each other prophetic words often, because we understand that us being so connected, it's easy to prophesy from the soul, because you want what they want for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but these were not people who were, yes, some of friends may have given something, but I had submitted it to wise counsel. And so when you were intentional and how you were trying to go about the process, when you were submitted to God completely until the end, you really have to get your bearings again about your hearing, and God cannot trust you. I will never forget. I think it was in December. I decided I was going to go on a fast, and I was reading something. I think I had decided to use like a Bible plan, just as like something to kind of help bring the day together. And I don't remember what this said, but it basically kind of questioned or alluded to being angry at God. And I said, you know what? Yes, I am mad at you. And I just broke down, but I don't think that up until that point that I had really identified that there was a level of anger that was there, because there was so much time on like the disappointment and just literally like breathing from day to day, like trying to regulate my thoughts so that you're not thinking about it over and over, and like rehearsing moments of like, but you had said this and then this and then this had happened. Like, I know I'm not crazy. Yes. I didn't make that up. And okay, now I remember when you had said this, and okay, but wait, so help me understand. Like, so because there was so many moments of that, and trying to not like allow the enemy to make me go out of my mind just by rehearsing things, the anger portion kind of was suppressed. And when the pressure of those thoughts had kind of been relieved, the anger was then able to come up. And it's like, I got to trust. I'm not just trusting, can I hear? I'm trusting if you God, like not if you exist, but like what's going on? Like, why would you allow this to happen? And why would you have tied me? Because one of the things God is funny, because, you're like, I'll never talk about this again. And then he'll send people and you're like, what the heck? Why do I have to minister about this to them? Like, why are there more people in the world going through this? But the thing is, and one of the things that the Lord has taught me was that part of the process is about obedience, and not just obedience, but understand that when you are tied, some of us are called to be tied to God in a way that maybe others do not understand. And what I mean is, like, years ago, the Lord yoked me to him in the sense that I cannot do what I want. And not to say that people can't, but some of us have different liberties, and it's not that one is better than the other, but we just have some of us have a different leashing. God has a different leashing on us. And so because of that, what it means is I can't release myself from a word until God says I'm released. So even I kept hearing the
Selah moment. That's that right there.
I kept hearing the same thing. And even if I didn't want to receive the same thing, I couldn't change God's mind about what he was saying, because it was a lesson of obedience and submission. Will you submit to what I say when you want to and when you don't? Will you submit to what I say and what I am telling you, even if it doesn't make sense, right? Like, can you literally allow me to be the one that is controlling the reins of your life? And sometimes that means that he will make you outlive a story, even though he may already know that it's not going to go the way that he had preferred, because there is a becoming that will come from it for you that you would rather not get that way. But even at the end, you will still be able to testify that I am better because of it.
Jesus. Pause.
Amen.
Pause.
Amen.
Just pause.
Okay.
All of that. All of that. All of that.
And so that has been a huge point. And so one of the things that I have had to do is I've really have had to, I to the best of my ability, I don't rehearse. When I want to rehearse, I forgive myself, because I'm rehearsing because I'm trying to see where I went wrong. Because I would rather just be wrong than to think that I just wasn't chosen back.
Jesus.
Because there goes that rejection again, right? To not be chosen back, like, I don't wish that pain on nobody. Like,
yeah.
To not be chosen back is an experience all by itself, right? And so I would rather be wrong. Like, I would rather be like, no, girl, you was just wrong. Because then it's not, they just decided that that's not what they wanted to do. You know what I mean? And so I've had to, so let me go back to what you asked me to do. So don't rehearse. Stop rehearsing over, and at some point.
But how do you stop that? Because that is so, it just becomes the preoccupation of your mind, right?
Yeah. And so what I would do when rehearsing would come is that I would aggressively forgive myself, because it's shame that wants you to rehearse. And so I can say, yeah, that happened and it did not, I can acknowledge when the moment comes up. But when I say aggressively forgiving stops the rehearsing and then frees me to then be able to think forward and accept reality. So this is one of the affirmations that kind of helped me over the last, well, it helped me at two different times for two different reasons, but hey, I would say to myself, I let go of what was to accept what is and embrace what will be. And I would literally, y'all, that things would come to my mind. I'd be like, I let go of what was and embrace what I let go of what was. Because the reality is, like, sometimes we can't just not acknowledge, like, yes, something, we're grieving something. Yes. There was an ending, yes, but there's still a present, and there's just as much a future.
Yes.
But the thoughts that the enemy is bringing to our minds wants you to get stuck in what was, so that you can't be in where you are or see what God has in the future. Mm-hmm. So letting go of what was me giving myself permission to grieve and to let go, to accept what is, giving myself permission to see what is actually good, because your eyes will make you think that everything is bad. But if I can see what is actually good, help me, God, to find the joy in today. Help me to find what is good in today. But also, I want to open myself up to the future. And that just may look like you declaring by faith. I choose, and this was my coping skill of 2024. My number one coping response was to hope.
Yeah.
When hopelessness comes, I'm gonna hope. When I'm discouraged, I'm gonna hope. When I'm not really sure if it's gonna happen for me in anything, I'm going to hope. When the enemy tries to whisper something, I'm going to hope. When I maybe see something for somebody else that I'm happy for them, but then I'm like, dang, is it going to happen? I'm hoping, because the Bible says to hope against hope.
Come
Hoping
on.
against hope is what got Abraham and
Come on.
Sarah and Isaac.
Yeah.
Right? Hoping against hope is what eventually got Hannah Samuel.
Yeah.
Right? Hoping against hope, it is literally, it is a method. And so I believe that if we can hope, that we can get closer to the fulfillment, because the Bible says that a heart deferred is sick. So part of the manifestation, the promises of God, is a hopeful heart.
Yes.
I can't, and I need my hope to believe in him. I need my hope to trust that when he speaks to me about my future, that he's not just saying just to say, right, but that he really means it. I need to be able to hope.
Yes.
And so I would hope, I would radically hope. I would just, Lord, I'm going to hope against hope. I still believe. I choose to believe. I'm worthy. I'm still worthy of this. I'm still good. Like, I'm still qualified for these things. Like, I'm still able. Like, these are things that you want for me,
yes.
but I desire. And so I'm not going to relent. I'm not going to give up my posture and position in hoping. I'm going to stay at the altar and hope. Yes. I'm going to stay at the altar and continue to pray. Even if prayer just looks like tears, even if prayer just looks like you sitting in silence because you don't have any words, I am not going to forfeit my posture or my position in God because of this experience. This experience does not define me. This experience, God can work together to allow for it to cause for me to further become. And guess what? There's going to be greater. I thought that was a form of God's best, but there's a better.
Yeah.
There's a greater. There's something that I can't even think or imagine about that is going to be perfect and tailor-made to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I can trust God. I can trust you. He's not playing me. Me and Andra always say that.
Always say
He's
that.
not trying
Baby,
to play,
he ain't gonna play me.
Sucker. He's not.
He's not gonna play me.
Also, the scripture, all things work together for the good. You know what I'm saying? And Proverbs 3:5-6.
Trust in the Lord.
Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all of your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Our understanding, trust me, he'll use you, who he loves, because he knows he can always get you back to go and save, help, heal, play a part in restoration towards somebody else.
Somebody else. Right on,
you know what I'm saying?
Girl, I said, you sure are benefiting from the prayers that have put up on your
That part.
Woo! And here's the thing, though. I'll just say this lastly. Y'all, you don't have to make somebody a villain in your story.
No.
Even when they may have done villain-like stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have to be the villain, you know, and they don't, because I still want the best for you. I still, right? I may not be a part of it the way that I had thought or desired, but ultimately, like, y'all, I remember when I found out, y'all, I was on vacation, okay? And look at me. Lord, I just pray for their marriage that it will be. Ooh, and I mean, I didn't want to say it, but I knew that I had to humble myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not, because bitterness, the enemy will try to use bitterness to capture your heart and become uncharacteristic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go into, we can become petty and shady, just all these different things towards people that we feel have hurt us in whatever way, in whatever, that's not romantic, family, friendship, work, whatever, right? And I have worked really hard to not get bitter over the last several years. And so years ago, the Lord taught me to pray for others, especially when you feel offended, to pray for them first. That's the first thing I do when I'm offended. I pray for people. So that my heart doesn't get captured by bitterness. And so if you find yourself, you've experienced hurt, whether it's by somebody that you were hoping to be with, whether it's by a friend, I urge you to pray for them. At first, it won't feel genuine, but eventually it will, right? But what you're doing is you're safeguarding your heart so that your heart is not altered by this, and you can continue to be all that God has called you to be.
That's good. That's good. As we are headed out, and I just wanted to ask a quick question. What's next? What's next for Taylor Banks?
Ooh, let me tell you. One thing heartbreak will make you do is work. And so I'm super excited. So I will say for my women's ministry, we have a retreat coming up in July 10th through the 13th in Miami, Florida. The Pursuit Retreat, where rest and revival collide. So we're not just going to be revived in our spirit and get a lot of great information. We're going to rest. We're going to laugh. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to sit at the pool. We're going to do the things, and you will not leave. You know, when you go to a conference and you leave tired, needing vacation, this will not be that. You will get the rest you need so that when you go home, you can actually use what you got to put it into place and be able to carry it out. And then I'm super excited that I'm launching literally this week, the Well Leader. And the Well Leader is for leaders to be able to have not just public success, but private success as well. And so we will be cultivating leaders to be mentally and emotionally well, holistically well, with various tools. We got workbooks and e-guides and training series that will be able to be provided really in particular to universities, to corporations, and then of course the church at large. So I'm super excited about that. And I believe that this is really where God has been trying to push me to. And there were some things that just didn't make sense, but over the last couple of months, he made it all make sense in terms of how to package it and present it. And so I'm excited about that business endeavor and all that the Lord is going to do through it.
That's amazing. We congratulate you, and I'm excited about the retreat. That's such an amazing
major congratulations. That's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So welcome.
Well, we have enjoyed the time with our girl, Taylor Banks. This is us signing off. And until next time, what you do?
We're going to stay in love.
With love.
Bye. Bye.